following is not a story the Wayfarer parties ever wish to tell.
That's not the beginning of a novel. That's a real quote from a legal complaint filed in Hollywood. But what if I told you that this lawsuit, the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively case, reads like a story? A very good one. Welcome to Verse Voyage, where we explore storytelling in all its form. I'm Florence, burnt out creator, rediscovering our creativity, author, poet, you name it, I do it. Let's get into it. This is the first in a 6-part series where we break down the real life drama of the Wayfarer versus Lively lawsuit and uncover the writing craft lessons hidden in plain sight. Unless you are completely shut out entertainment news in your life, you've heard about the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively or the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni lawsuits. Yes, lawsuits. Just a refresher, background, we're not here to judge anyone. We are simply exploring this lawsuit through the lens of craft. And there is a lot to be learned in this story. Just a bit of background. They started way back as early as 2023, came to a head in 2024. This lawsuit centers around It Ends With Us, which was a book created by Colin Hoover, became a movie optioned by Wayfarer Studios, where Justin Baldoni is one of the founders of the studio. He directed the movie, acted in the movie as well. And on the set, there were tensions. Fast forward 2024, the audience did not like the way the movie was being promoted. There were rumors about on-set tension again. There was unfollowing. So everything came to a head in December 2024 when Blake Lively filed a CRD complaint in the state of California alleging SH happened on the set, and that's when she brought that to the attention of the studio. She was retaliated against via a smear campaign, which she claimed accounted for all the bad publicity she received during the promotion of the movie. That was around Christmas time. Then Justin in January brought his own lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit that alleged that everything in our complaint was either misrepresentation of the facts or outright false. Fast forward to June 2025, this defamation lawsuit was dismissed on the ground that it did not meet there's a high threshold for defamation if you're a public figure. That's just what the dismissal was about. It did not meet the threshold needed to allege defamation. Blake Lively's lawsuit is still ongoing. The trial date is March 2026. Between the filing of the Saudi complaint and the recording of this video, a lot has come out into the public, has happened, and as I said, multiple lawsuits, complaints, and characters have come into play. It is a very tragic story, but there's a lot you can learn from the lawsuit as well. And I want to start off with the Justin Baldoni lawsuit because when that came out, that really changed the trajectory of the story. When Blake filed a complaint, a lot of people were on her side just due to the content of it. And there was the New York Times article as well, so that brought a lot of people to her side. When the Wayfarer parties created the lawsuitinfo.com, as well as the first lawsuit and the second amended lawsuit, it changed the conversation around a lot of people looking at the facts alleged in that lawsuit, changed their opinions. So that is where we are right now. and Blake Lively is still alleging that the spy campaign is still going on as far as this summer fall 2025. I can't wait to hear your opinions about the craft techniques in this lawsuit. It's really an eye-opener. I have read a few briefs, a few lawsuits, and nothing quite captured the attention like this, especially with that wowzer of an opening. The following is not a story the Wayfarer parties ever wished to tell. First of all, that right there, that sets you into the mind. Your opening sentence is going to be one of the most important sentences of your novel, of your writing. It will set the tone, it will set the pacing, it will set the mood, and it is going to set also the genre that you're going to be on. We've all heard of Jane Austen's opening and Pride and Prejudice. I would say this is actually up there with as one of the best openings I've ever read about, and we are approaching this as a story. Today we're going to talk about character, villains, victims, visionaries. Now this lawsuit teaches us what makes people compelling on the page. Let's start with Justin Baldoni, framed as the protagonist in this narrative. The lawsuit paints him as an idealist and creator, someone who wanted to use storytelling to change lives. As a writer, think about what that tells us. This is character setup. It gives us a value system, creativity, vulnerability, integrity. But every strong protagonist needs stakes, and this lawsuit delivers. The following is not a story the Wayfarer parties ever wished to tell. Unfortunately, Blake Lively has unequivocally left them with no choice, not only to set the record straight in response to Lively's accusations and the New York Times company's maliciously and recklessly propagated falsehoods, but also to put the spotlight on the parts of Hollywood that they have dedicated their careers to being the antithesis of. The task was always going to be an uphill battle. They never imagined they would encounter it to this degree. Does that not read like a 2020 opening? I got chills. We have quotes from the lawsuit info going through how Baldoni co-founded Wayfarer in 2019. Talked about how the studio was dedicated to being a different kind of studio, one that produced world-class entertainment driven by a powerful vision for change. In pursuit of that vision, in 2019, Wayfarer acquired the rights to It Ends With Us, a Colin Hoover novel. During the pandemic in 2020, Colin Hoover blew up on Book Talk, and Wayfarer had just bought the right to this book that became one of the biggest Colin Hoover books the year before. It was a coincidence that it was the universe colliding in a positive way for Wayfarer. And the book does talk about DV and intimate partner abuse. The lawsuit goes into how Colin and Justin basically got together, and Colin agreed for Justin to direct this movie. They include emails between the both of them to set the stage, and they talked about the studios Wayfarer partner with to finance this movie, which is Sony. We'll talk about them a bit more, as well as the agreement allowing a certain percentage of the proceeds from the movie to go towards survivors of abuse. As a writer, think about what that tells us. This is character setup. It gives us a value system, creativity, vulnerability, integrity. But every strong protagonist needs stakes, and this lawsuit delivers. The lawsuit talks about how Sony and Colin and Wayfarer Studios casted Blake Lively, a world-renowned actor, married to Ryan Reynolds, he of the Deadpool fame, and how they entrusted her with their vision about this story to bring the main character Lily to life. Although Wayfarer learned that Lively had a reputation for being difficult to work with, Baldoni at the time was not dissuaded and found out to be genuine. The lawsuit then goes into pre-production, and it includes text messages between Baldoni and Lively, and the text messages were very cordial at first. There's even a text message between Baldoni and Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, and the banter between the two of them. Trouble started within days of them being on set to film.
Betrayal. The story pivots. Suddenly, our protagonist is under threat, not just creatively, but professionally and personally. Writer Steve, establish your character's moral compass early and then flip the environment to challenge it. This builds tension and emotional investment.
During the pre-production phase, Lively and Reynolds raised entirely false allegations of fat shaming against Baldoni, an accusation that, as evidence will show, was categorically false. Talk about the introduction of the trainer, how Baldoni had a back injury. He wanted to know how much there was a lift scene that was going to be in the movie. He wanted to know how much Blake weighed, and the trainer I was using at that time was a trainer that Blake was very familiar with. She was actually the one that introduced the trainer to Baldoni. And allegedly, the trainer went back to Blake and relayed this conversation, which was one of the starts of tension on set. So there was a fat shaming. There was alleged fat shaming. There's concern that Blake Lively at this time just had a baby. So, according to the lawsuit, she had expressed insecurity about her postpartum figure. And while Baldoni made every attempt to reassure her, according to this lawsuit, he said that anything you feel insecure about, we'll talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. Again, reinforcing the character of the Justin Baldoni figure as an empathetic, creative. When he later tried to do just that, reassured her that she doesn't need to stress about her body and that they will walk through things together. That's when the allegation of the SH came into play. Lively then demanded an ultimatum. If Baldoni could not get on board with her work methods, it still had 2 weeks to recast her. This all happened before they actually started filming. This is pre-production, and implicit in this ultimatum was a threat to destroy Baldoni's reputation and career. As Lively well knew, Baldoni was worked hard throughout his career to earn and deserve a reputation based on his passionate advocacy for women's rights, a reputation she would later exploit and weaponize against him. If Lively were to back out of the film, especially based on accusations of fat shaming, Baldoni's reputation and life's work would be left in tatters. He had no choice but to bow to Lively and Reynolds' demands. Concerns about Lively's undue influence over the film began to grow even before filming started. And there is a conversation between producers talking about how Justin cannot let Blake always get away. It's going to delay filming. It's going to cause conflict within the moving parts of the film. And this whole story is set in a narrative that Blake's allegations and complaints are in light of her trying to seize control of the film from Baldoni, and they list a lot of instances. The antagonists as hero in their own story. Again, we're framing this in terms of crafts. We have no opinion about these lawsuits except in terms of craft. Now, let's talk about Blake Lively's role. As framed in the amended complaint, she's positioned as the antagonist, but she's not continuously evil. That's key. Our attitude towards the whole situation, telling me a 2 weeks recast her, knowing the implications on his life's work, that suggests manipulation, not overt villainy. If we were writing her as a character, we'd say she's acting in her own self-interest. That's crucial for writers. Every antagonist believes they are doing what's right. Blake started talking to Baldoni about writing, changing a bit of the scripts, and he responded with, "We already have a script writer. We'll see how we can merge your version of the story." And Blake ghosts in. Basically, there's silence on her end. She didn't respond to it. Silence here is a weapon, and that's a character trait too. Avoidance, ghosting, control through inaction. Writer's tip: avoid one note villains. Give them strategy, style, and silence. The more human your antagonist, the more haunting the betrayal. There was a writer's strike that lasted a few months, and the film had to be paused. You can't write or film during a writer's strike. Writers Guild is a union, and you have to stand together, and anyone doing work when the union is on strike is basically blacklisted. Both before and during the strikes, lively, eager involvement in the production took on a more insistent and manipulative tone as she asked for access to the dailies. Dailies are just basically what it's called. It's a daily video from the set, so it's everything you've shot that day, even though they might never appear in the movie. So it's just think of it as a diary of everything that happened that day. It's the raw footage and early cuts of scenes as well, both inappropriate and unorthodox requests from people in the industry. This is not commonly done with actors or actresses. This is the purview of the director and the producers, not really something an actress would be highly involved with. But she was asking about that. There is a text message from Arm. She said, "Hey, would you mind giving me access to dailies? And I'm curious which takes you liked of the scenes you showed." Redacted. "My manager, redacted, flew out to visit set and leaves tomorrow a.m. He heard all about it from redacted, and I'd love to show him. I appreciate you may be too slammed right now to make this happen, but maybe someone else can facilitate. Thanks so much." Wayfarer, Baldoni, and another producer on the film strategized on how to respond to Lively, which became common practice. They're really setting her up as the antagonist, truly, and they're crafting narrative about her with what they've said and what they're not saying. So as not to trigger backlash from Lively, she basically became something that could explode at any second to them. She was basically a bomb that could go off. The text exchange below demonstrates adamant objections to giving Lively the dailies. Not only was it an inappropriate overreach, but there was a very real concern that its simple ask, such as rewriting a couple of scenes, would turn to a complete takeover. For example, rewriting the script. They rightly feared that giving her the dailies could turn into her demanding to edit the whole movie, which is exactly what ultimately happened. We've got a bit of foreshadowing there. Supporting casts and dynamic roles. The lawsuit also names Sony and Wayfarer Studios, and this is where character dynamics shine. Sony isn't described as a villain, but as complicit. They are the silent enabler throughout the ongoing situations. According to Blake, she's reaching out to Sony to file complaints, and they are telling her that they're just a financier. They have no control over Wayfarer Studios. She claims that she also reached out to Wayfarer, but there was no appropriate HR steps for her to file a complaint with, and Sony is just there. And then from Wayfarer's side, there are incidences of where they reached out to Sony, and Sony executive basically said, if you don't play ball, you're going to regret it when this film bombs because you're not acquiescing to Lively's demand. Supporting characters aren't just background, they shape your protagonist's journey, they reflect the system. In this case, a studio's specificity adds a layer of institutional power imbalance. And then we have comments from Isabella Ferrar, who played young Lily, the younger version of the character Blake plays. There's a text from her with a glowing review of her experience with Justin Baldoni on the set. She said she felt comfortable. There are they have interviews with actors that would go into the DVD set or would be like a supplemental to the movie when it comes out on DVDs, and they're talking about the set and how really nice it is. But when during the lawsuit, when she is subpoenaed by the Wayfarer team, our lawyer released a very, very strongly worded complaint stating that they have appropriated a story and basically said that Wayfarer Studio was harassing her by trying to subpoena her. So the story changed. And then there are a few of the actors on sets that have yet to say anything. They are very middle of the line, talking about how they do not want the story to fall by the wayside of the lawsuits. Writer's tip: use side characters to reflect or reinforce the central conflict. Even passive roles can carry thematic weight. This is more apparent when the mass unfollowing happens. In August, when the film premiered, social media users realized that no one in the cast, except maybe one person, was following Justin. They had all unfollowed him between May to August, just a mass unfollowing, which led people to believe they've chosen sides and that there was something really, really terrible that happened on set. So a character arc isn't just about change, it's about revelation. We see Baldoni go from optimistic collaborator to slightly disillusioned. By the end of the filming, he just gave up. He literally said, at this point, let's our way. That it was so emotionally drained, and he talked about it. There is a interview where he talked about how he was emotionally drained by the end of 2024. He reached out to his publicist, his wife, his secretary, his PR person, and just basically said that this has taken really a lot out of him, and he just wanted them to know his mindset at that point. And you can actually see it in him. He also ended up in 2024. I believe he ended up in the hospital with a back infection in his back, and he was in the hospital for getting IV antibiotics as well. So it was really draining on him, physically, emotionally, mentally as well. This arc mirrors a tragedy, a fall caused by misplaced trust. The story isn't about losing a movie, it's about being betrayed by those you respected or trusted or gave this creative trust to. That's emotional. Ask yourself, what's your character's emotional wound by the end of your story? If it's different from the beginning, you have an arc. So, what can we learn as fiction writers from this very, very real and tragic lawsuit? Complex characters matter. Give everyone motives, even the villains. Justin's motive is to, according to his lawsuit, is to create a emotionally resonant movie that will raise awareness about DV. From their side, Blake's motive is to take creative control of the movie, and she did get a PG mark from everything that they allege she did on this movie. And there is later that they said they felt pressure to write that recommendation for her to join the Producers Guild of America. That the whole purpose of her was just to have creative control over this film. And when your characters don't have motives, the audience will give them motives as well. There are a lot of hearsay and rumors going around on social media regarding Blake's motives. The one that makes the most sense to most people is that she did try to take over this movie and assert creative control. According to her lawsuit, she framed it as the Wayfarer Studio being incompetent and that she had to come in and set everybody straight, that she was the voice of reason, that she was the one that all these actresses came to because she allegation is that there are other people privy to the bad behaviors on set. They felt safe with her, and so she had to be the person that went and was the voice for them to fight for them. Betrayal is more powerful when it feels personal. We see the text messages between Blake and Justin and Ryan, and how something started up very well. There was camaraderie, there was collaboration, and it felt friendly. They asked about each other's kids, they asked about the family. It was very gushing. Now, this could be typical Hollywood kisseassery, but it felt very cordial, so to say, like two people working together for the greater good of the movie. And when everything started happening, when Blake started having her demands and having complaints, it did feel very shocking because I was like, how did we get from point A to point D? And that is the story. That is the plot. Actions speak louder than words. You've heard this one said many times before. What your character doesn't do, the silence, the inaction, may be the most revealing. Blake sent a text to Justin about, hey, what do you think about the scene that I wrote? He sent a text back saying, I think we're probably going to stick more with what the actual person paid to write this wrote, but I will think about it. She ghosts him, goes silent, and he released that message, a 2 a.m. message that everyone's like, why is your boss texting at 2 a.m.? With a very, very raspy voice. It had just come from a youth group thing, and that's why he released it at that time of night. She wrote back and told him that she's had terrible experiences on movie sets whereby people ask for her opinion and then they just want her to stand on the X and say some lines, and she thought this was going to be different. So he sent her that voice note and he said, basically apologize for all the bad experience she'd had before. And then she goes about our dragons. That's the famous line about our dragons. So Intinad, T Swift, and Ryan Reynolds as our dragons, and she is Khaleesi. So that was that cringy line that everyone was talking about when that came out. But this revealed a lot about Blake's character as well. The silence. In silence is power, and she used that to her advantage. Power dynamics shape people. Who speaks, who listens, and who gets erased. This is not a typical Hollywood story. Usually, the director has the power, the studio has power. But in this instance, the power rests with Lively. She was the one that was friends with T Swift, the biggest pop star in the world. She is the one that is married to Ryan Reynolds, one of the biggest movie stars in the world. She is the one that was contracted by Sony. So if you know Osman has a first look deal with Sony, Sony releases Deadpool in conjunction with Marvel Studio. So our husband has a lot of ties in with Sony Studio, and she was a lot of the budget of the films went towards hiring Blake Lively. She got away regarding the outfits. She was one the studio was backing when it came time to choose sides. Essentially, they acquiesced to our demands. The power was on our side, and the only reason we're seeing this play out is that there is this lack of disbelief that the backlash against the way she promoted the movie was organic, and Blake feels that this came from Justin's group, that is the one that created a smear campaign to ruin our reputation. Thanks for joining me for the first episode of Verse Voyage. If you're intrigued by how legal documents can mirror fiction, you want to stick around. We're just getting started. Next time, we're diving into setting as power, from boardrooms to legal memos, and how setting becomes a character in its own right. I've got a writing prompt for you. Got your writing device, pen, paper, computer? Great. I want you to write a scene where your main character enters a meeting with someone they admire, only to realize by the end of the scene they have been manipulated. Focus on body language, subtext, and power shifts. Leave your thoughts or even your mini scene in the comments. And if you found this helpful, it's like, subscribe, and download the character act checklist in the description below. It's built from everything we talked about today. And share this with the writer in your life. Until next time, keep writing, keep pondering, and remember, sometimes the best stories aren't made up at all. Without further ado, get writing.
On this episode, we talked about characters, the villains, the victims, the visionaries. On the next episode, we will be discussing setting, your setting as power, and I will show you exactly how to improve the setting in your world to create obstacles and to create opportunities for your characters. As always, keep writing. Thank you.